Today I want to discuss smooth bow changes with you on the cello. Now, what do I mean when I say smooth bow changes? The ideal, of course, is that we don't hear the bow change at all. This is a bit of an interesting concept. The famous violin teacher, Dorothy DeLay, once said that I never saw a bow change which I couldn't hear. And there's a lot to be said for that quote, because ultimately there always is going to be a bow change and it always is going to be audible. It just depends to what degree is it going to be audible. The idea of having a completely seamless sound, while it can be perceptible, one can be fooled into thinking there's a completely seamless sound. That's never what happens. I think it's a false concept. We hear this thing that there's absolutely no bow changes. Of course there are bow changes. I just think the bow changes have to be smooth bow changes. You know, you mustn't, every single time it changes, mustn't be some consequential noise. It should be a predetermined sound. So I wanted to show how the string works in this regard, something that I work on a lot. If I play, let's just work on the G. If I play, the string carries on ringing. If I pronate and I keep the weight and I stop, then it's dead. The string completely stops. If I play now to the end of the bow and I'm angled ever so slightly back, that basically one could say one or two hairs only are touching at the end, but I'm remaining on the string. But just for those two hairs, if I do that, then I have, yeah, the sound still continues. So, while the sound continues like that, and we're sort of resting on the string, the idea is to catch the string while that vibration is still happening and come back. So for example, instead of having a normal kind of a, I like to call them clicks, a bow click, that kind of change, if we have now, of course you can hear those bow changes, but if we play a piece, for example, when the notes are changing in a piece, you know, we hear the notes changing, we don't hear the bow. This is why I'm saying that while we should always do our best to hide the change as much as we can, this change is still there, it just needs to be smooth. And a big part of the problem with trying to achieve smooth bow changes is that too many people concentrate on the actual bow change. They spend so much time changing the bow and doing all of these things that that's exactly what one hears. So what is important about a good bow change and a smooth bow change is the preparation before. Now we have this at the tip, which I've just discussed. But at the frog, it's very much the same thing. At the frog, Paul Tortelier, again, who I mentioned in my previous video, in his book he discusses a kind of a rolling technique, and what that does is basically it lets the tip drop a little bit, and as soon as that happens we take advantage of the balance and we use the first finger to bring it back up, and all of this is done as if it were slightly above the string, again, yet with one or two hairs touching. Like that last one. Of course, this is just very general. It always depends on what one is playing. In loud parts, if we're projecting or playing with an orchestra, I mean, you know, you haven't got time to do these things. If it's something like some people even want an accent there. Again, so this is just a general idea, but it's better to strive for a smooth bow change first before actually trying to hide the change. That's the direction that it goes into. If you want to sit down, you have to stop, turn around and stand in front of the chair and then sit down. You can't just be running or walking and then sit down. So that's very much the thing, the preparation for the bow change, to use the string's natural vibration to take advantage of that and to catch it and to make it as smooth as possible. That's what hides the bow change, that we just make it incredibly smooth, and within its musical context there will always be an answer. Of course, there are times when we want an accent, and yes, that's fine if we need an accent or a click. I like to refer to them as the difference between consonants and vowels. So I encourage my students to change the bow on an O, an A, an E, or a H. Now, H isn't a vowel, but I consider it to be a vowel in this case. Don't change the bow on K, P, T. You know, so if I change it on it was kind of like a K and a T together. You know, and those are lots of K. But if I think of the H, then that's a huge difference already, and one can just minimize the gap that one has. And that of course comes with lots of practice, but it is something which is developed sooner than later once one works at it, and it's an incredibly liberating experience, particularly if one plays chamber music in a quartet or in an orchestra, you know, that you're holding such long notes and you have to change, and then there's somebody who just changes like that by accident. So always this floating feeling. Of course, don't use only one hair that there's absolutely no sound. Of course, you know, I mean, we want sound. I'm not saying make a diminuendo. Don't do that, but that's the general idea. So have fun practicing that, and please leave questions in the comments if you have any. Thank you.